Is it just me or?
Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cut the Shit to the Genius show. We are excited to be with you today, and we are super excited to have one of our guest geniuses that we love so much. He's been with us since day one. We're almost like a year and some, like the Cut the Shit.
Oh, we're over a year.
We're over a year, and Sean has been with us from the beginning, like with flags, pom poms, like really, and it's just been fantastic. We have a great topic to discuss today, which is lead prospecting, and the sirens are on because it's lead prospecting and the planners. And Sean, introduce yourself real quick for those that don't know you, and they should. Shame on them, but yes.
Thank you, Dahlia. Yeah, I've been there from the jump. I would say an OG member of this crew. Sean Schuette with Schuette on Duty Solutions, based out of Plymouth, which is a western suburb of the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and extensive years in the business, and on my own 7 years come November. So my tagline is creating experiences that change people and environments.
That's fantastic.
It's huge on that. So looking forward to our discussion today and seeing what the other folks on the line have to say.
Absolutely. So we have Liz Caruso behind the scenes, and we have Michelle Bruno, who is beaming in from Florida, and myself, Dahlia Algazar, beaming in from Boston, Mass. And we have Jill Rasco from Hot Houston saying hi to Sean. So there you go. You're going to bring in all the lovelies, Sean, for sure. But so let's set the stage here. We are talking about independent planners within the events industry or the experience industry. Let's try to shift this a bit. But we're also talking about like what has changed when it comes to leads, what has changed when it comes to business models, what needs to be changed. So let's take a look back. I know that you've been an independent planner for over 7 years, if I'm not mistaken.
It'll be 7 years come November, but yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That in itself needs like a badge like no other because, at least you have hair.
Yep.
Okay, there you go. So talk to us about what has changed from a lead prospecting area or focus pre-Corona coaster, during, and now.
Well, I'll say at the top that referrals are always going to be the tried and true. Someone referring you to a job, whether tagging you through social media or just sending something your way and doing that virtual introduction. I'm a big fan of that. But what I've seen is, of course, the Corona coaster nearly killed our industry. A lot of us had to just think of different things. Suppliers, many of them I heard were like jumping into real estate, which I'm like, I would have no hair if I did that because that's very risky. But I would say myself, it's been just continuing to keep your funnel full. A real big reality for me was I forget what year it was, but I started 1 year with 4 things in my pipeline going, I'm going to nail at least one of those. I lost all 4. And then the question of like, why? And often you don't get the answer. And I think that continues into today of like, ghosting is a real thing. It sometimes feels like a dating process. And also timing is a huge thing. I've had to realize that something might come across my desk. I look at everything else in my portfolio and I say, can I make it happen or not? And just being transparent with people and cutting right to the chase. So that overall experience is just very different.
And there's a lot of planners, independent planners especially, that just focus and rely solely on referrals and word of mouth. And obviously heads down, they're really just focusing on getting the projects that are at hand done and the craziness that goes with it. Are you seeing a shift now though in the level or the amount of word of mouth referrals that are coming your way?
There's been an uptick. I will also say in the, if you're getting a contract project or being a freelancer, there's a much more out there in the stream. But also I'm seeing there's companies that don't know what they want. And so you can jump into that pool and maybe there's confusion, or they will also finally disclose what they can pay you. And it's laughable. Like $15 an hour was an experience for me. And I'm like, no. And I know Liz King has said to me, and I have it all the time, of you just have to stand for your values. Sometimes it's scary, but that's what you're worth. So I would say that's been the big thing that I've seen. And also, referrals happen when you're also out there being active, whether in social media or attending things like this and building community so people know who you are. Even Jill and I are on Event Tech Chat that Brant Kruger runs, and I'm an attendee, but it's a great community. And we have all, it's kind of like this too. It's like, I don't want to miss this, because it's like getting together with family and realizing you're not alone. And so, and then as they've come back, going to industry events and making new connections, I'll be going to Connect Marketplace in my backyard next week. And I'm not a hosted buyer because of my current portfolio, but who knows who am I going to run into, because there could be someone that wants you to help them on a project. So just being open is really what I would say is the key right now.
So name 3 locations, whether it's digital, you named already a couple, that you find where you prosper the most when it comes to leads or working a network.
Digital with Facebook, and primarily Facebook private groups that I've seen postings. Something you have to keep in mind is, if you're part of one of those, how many members? So it may be a great post, but 4,000 people are part of that group. You have to do the math if you want to jump in. I would say that. Also, these communities, again, it's digital, but I feel like it's someone in person, whether it's this or Event Tech Chat, that I'm gaining knowledge, but I'm also contributing. And I would say also too, going back to more industry events, I've been to ones where it's that traditional, you're meeting suppliers, that kind of thing, but you never know who you're going to run into and other colleagues. And it just feels good to be back in that in-person mix. So, and then never, I always carry this little thing in one of my pockets. It's my business cards. Granted, I have a digital version, but never leave home without having a card in your pocket, because you never know who you'll run into that strike up a conversation at a store, and you can give them your card and you've planted a seed.
Cool.
Well, it depends on what store you're in.
Of course. You just never know.
Dollar Tree store, I don't know.
There's just some stores I just don't think I would strike up any conversations with anyone.
So Jill has a question for you, Sean. Do you invest in LinkedIn Navigator?
My full transparent answer is I've not jumped into that. The free account has worked for me. I've been given the 3-month trial. I've had a lot of people say, and I would say now I might give the 3-month trial something. I'm one, and Jill knows this about me. I don't like to spend money if I don't have to, but also sometimes the free version runs out of options. So I guess I need to hear more success from people, because yes, you can see where your application is and so forth and so on. So that's where that sits.
What is it? What's LinkedIn Navigator?
It's part of the premium account, I believe. And when you apply for things, you can get yourself more further up the line, for lack of a better word, in the application process. You can actually see, because if you go out as a free user, I can see that people looked at my account, but some things are like a ghosted face because I'm not a premium member. So it's all about the value of that. So that's
but then, so you find out who's been looking at you. Then what do you do?
Some people then take that and say, okay, it's Charlie Brown. I'm going to reach out to Charlie Brown and be like, hey, yeah. And Jill said too, it's for sales prospecting.
Yeah.
But then you reach out to that person and go like, hey, I'm very interested. So you're getting, you might be getting to the hiring manager faster than just a screener in a position. But then for sales, yes, it does gain you more access to other people's stuff. So
it just gives you more information and stats of other profiles, as well as company profiles. So that's essentially the difference there.
There is also, sorry, this is Liz beaming in from. There's also the ability to have more in-mails, which can be helpful. And also to search a lot better. A lot of times the search on LinkedIn is limited to your first degree connection. So we have done it mostly for marketing events that we're pushing that we want people to attend. It's really helpful because you can search within your target market. But We personally, we don't do a lot of kind of outreach. We do, to Sean's point, most of our business comes from word of mouth. But if you were actively pursuing clients, the sales navigator in LinkedIn could be a good option.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One thing that I was wondering about is, and this is a pet peeve of mine, is and I would hope someone would correct me, I don't see industry associations or industry events actually carving out either time or space or efforts specifically for independent planners. And I think that is a huge missed opportunity when it comes to loyalty, when it comes to, and it's not about like you need special something or other, but I think there needs to be a focus of some kind, a track of some kind, peer to peer time and space within the events. And I think it's needed now more than ever because of all the different trends that you see when it comes to workforce, when it comes to the difference of the teams, the remote, talent that companies are bringing in, for example, as well as the partnerships that can be created from independent planners. So this is a huge ask, maybe for some associations, but I honestly think anybody should take advantage of that right now.
I would concur in the standpoint of I'm part of another private Facebook group, and we have like twice a month calls, and every now and then we'll do like, just because there's new people, introduce yourselves, but then I post a question of what's keeping you up at night. And the common thread from this week's call was, am I doing enough as an independent to get business out there? But also, two, where do I stand on price? And I know we've talked about this on some other episodes. And then also, two, just like, for me, a real reality is like, okay, I'm in the lane with a potential thing, whether collaboration, whatever. How often do I like reach back out? Because I don't want to be that nagging toddler that's like, hey, where are we at? Do you need anything more from me? Because I've seen sometimes where then that flips it to they chose someone else. Mm-hmm. But Bruno, you had stuff to say too.
I was just wondering if you guys have ever consulted career coaches, you included, Liz, what they have advised and what they would say. Okay, no.
Well, I know for me, when I was first out there, like no one gives you a manual for being a business owner. It's like just jump in the pool with your floaties on and figure it out.
Yeah.
I went to an all-day seminar that a colleague of mine ran, and I learned about finding your niche and really just like honing on it. That's your signature thing that helps you develop your elevator pitch, all that kind of stuff. But it was an 8-hour class, and it's for all kinds of people. And I really gained a lot from that, because often our industry is misunderstood. We're told that we're party planners, which for me, I want to gnash my teeth of powder when I hear that. But it's also one of those things where like, okay, being in an environment with other folks. But then there's some stuff that's amiss. I'll just be honest. I went to 2 BNI meetings and I was like, no, never again. Because it was definitely like finding, networking, and you were like rated on how many things, and there's too many rules, and they didn't understand what we did. So
yeah,
that's been my experience.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, so Spencer, thank you for sharing that you're launching a platform called Troop Travel. I love that. I'm also going to share in the comments an article that Michelle put together in regards to like freelance marketplaces. So we spoke with Tracy Judge with Soundings, as well as with Todd with Cadre. And basically, these are also marketplaces where you, as independent planners or experts within your field, can showcase your profile, your areas of expertise, and then there's matchmaking that happens in regards to projects that like a Tracy and a Todd and Spencer. I think your Troop Travel is probably going to do the same as well. And I think these kind of outlets, is great, especially for lead prospecting, but it's also in regards to partnerships. So let's talk about partnerships for a second, Sean. You had mentioned before the show that you took a hard look at what you were, giving as services, and you had to reevaluate. And I'm hoping that other independent planners do the same. So what was that process like for you?
So, I mean, I still offer the A to Z, and I can count coffee cups with the best of them, but production is those that know me. Production is a big passion of mine, whether show calling or helping put things together. And I've been fortunate actually to land a piece of business that executes next year in production that then could become a yearly contract. And then also I'm in the running to collaborate with someone on a project that could be 3 years running. That's mostly production. But my eyes really were opened when I joined a colleague of mine local to the Twin Cities on a project with 7,000 dentists in Las Vegas at Caesars Forum. And I was brought in with 10 other people, and I was to do the VIP experience and named entertainment. So full disclosure, I dealt with David Spade and Journey. David Spade was easy, Journey, not so much. But I got to then partner with the production company, never seen a bigger video village in my life. But through that experience, it was amazing to collaborate with other people, but also just to be part of a team, because we needed all 10 of us to execute the event. And I really seen the value of that. And then staying in contact with those people to say, like, if you ever need someone to be that other person on the bus with you dealing with production, even if it's simple as like helping to write scripts or whatever, I can be your guy and be that other piece on side. Because people are now admitting, and this happened on a call I was on earlier this week, that I'm not an expert in fill in the blank. And that's where you should perk up and go, well, I can help be on your team. And again, it's timing and placement and all that kind of stuff. But I found those are just wonderful things to experience, because you then collectively are making it happen. And for me, I love the inside experience. It's like theater coming to life.
That's awesome. What happens, because I hear a lot of like, shit show stories where you are partnered with other independent planners or those that say they're experts in something, and it turns out they're not experts in anything. Or the client from hell. Liz has shared some stories with me about those as well. We have our own where they don't really value the expertise that you bring to the table. And so, the way they treat you, it is not the greatest. And then on the flip side, then they question your pricing, and they question your worth, and they question the rate and all of that. Like how should that be dealt going forward with independent planners?
I would say, and I've again learned this over the last year, is my price is my price. It's a risky biscuit to throw out there, but your value has to be what it is. I mean, I mentioned the $15 an hour one. It was something that I talked to the woman and fully qualified it, but then she just finally caved and said, I need to let you know that we can only pay $15 an hour. And I just had to do a hard stop. I respected them.
Mm-hmm.
I even was in person to talk to, it was a dog rescue group here in the Twin Cities, and they were super impressed. I'm with the founder and like their chief of staff, but then they divulged how much it was. And that was $18 an hour, and it was a board made decision. And I was just like, no. And I kept my composure, because I'm like, in that moment, I'm like, what? But at the same time, I've always learned, you then plant that seed. Like, if you need help, big or small, give me a call. I sound like, I'm doing a little shtick, but you have to sometimes, you can't always walk away from it early on, because you have to build your portfolio. You got something to fall back on.
Right.
But I've learned I just have to stand for it, because also, God rest her soul, you don't have the Princess Leia moment where it's like everyone says, because I felt like Carrie Fisher was always like going to have that role, even though she did other things. Word will get out in the industry that, the person X will do it for next to nothing. And I've even had agencies say to me, because I've pushed back on the rate, and they're like, well, we have people who are interested. I'm like, I understand, but this is what I'm going to cost. Then I often lose out, but I just have to be professional and stand my ground.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard, but you have to have that niche that Sean was talking about earlier. And you really have to like really go hard on that. We have had people who had told me what their budget is, and I responded with what our number would be, which is well over their budget. And they'll say, well, we just have to make it work because we have to have that expertise. We don't know anybody else who can do X, Y, and Z. And so if you're trying to be everything to everybody, that's when you're competing price-wise with everybody. And if you can really figure out what you offer that's different than everybody else, that's where you can then, but a lot of planners, and I know how that is firsthand. You're just trying to get the business,
Right.
which is why I'm not on video. So you almost have to come across as super confident, even if you need that next contract to pay your rent or to whatever. You have to professionalize it and really come across as, this is the value I'm bringing from the very beginning. Like your first emails have to set the tone that I'm not a $15 an hour person.
Yeah.
So that you don't sit in 7 hours of meetings before you find out that's where they're at, So it's a really tough process, and it's a lot of faking it till you make it a lot of times, but you have to set those expectations for yourself before anyone else is going to hold them for you.
And I would add to that one thing I've learned is it's a conversation revolves solely around price. It's a non-starter because they're not seeing you. They're seeing you as a commodity or a line in a spreadsheet versus the value. And it is hard, like Liz says, to get through that wall and be like, this is what I bring. But, I feel like, our work speaks for itself. All we have is our name. But like I said a minute ago, if you start accepting things at lower price, it's gonna get out there. And I was in a session too where this business coach talked about your client list should be like an elite list to a VIP country club. They should, it's very hard for them to get in, and then they want to keep it. And I have a real experience happening this afternoon that an event I did almost 5 years ago, the 20th anniversary for a client, they are going to meet with me this afternoon to talk about the 25th anniversary. So the only caveat is, do I charge more? And
Yes. And the answer is yes.
Yeah. And the answer is yes. So,
Okay.
But I mean, God bless Calendly, because they just reached out to me and they booked the time and they're just like, we want to talk to you. So I'm like, okay. But to know that they remembered me from almost 5 years ago, that's another thing where just those hidden gems sometimes come out of nowhere. So
how do you, Sean, assess where the demand is? So I agree with Liz that part of the success for any professional is to find some specific niches where you can be the expert. But in order to decide what those niches are, how are you, or how is any planner going about, figuring out where the demand is? Is it in medical? Is it, people, that know how to plan whatever, it is that you want to do? Is it, what I do lots of times is read job descriptions for full-time jobs. I do that a lot just to see what are the qualifications required, what is the knowledge base required, and I try and get, read the ones that are on the higher scale so that I can make sure that I, number one, have those qualifications. If I were doing what you do, and number two, just, that if there is some kind of like learning required or certifications, that I have those lined up, and then I can promote those specifically. So I guess thinking about where that information is, maybe Chat GPT, maybe you just go in, not you, I'm just maybe people, our listeners, go in and say, where is the biggest demand for different types of independent, meeting planners or whatever, and start creating this knowledge base around where the demand is so that you can then form fit to those specific niches.
So every day I'm looking at opportunities, whether your traditional FTE model, your contract, what have you, and how the job description is written is whether or not I'm going to put my toe in the water. Because one thing I've learned, and I'll just do a plug for, it's a YouTube channel called A Life After Layoff. He's a real life recruiter, and he talks about being the CEO of your own destiny kind of thing. And he talks about you're continuing to apply until you have a butt in the seat, and even so much as you have your first paycheck, because he's shared stories of people that even a weekend, they're like, you know what, it didn't work out. And they're like out of a job because then they don't have anything to fall back on. But I say all that to say is that I'm always looking. Even before getting on the show today, I applied to a couple more things. I track them, but I've learned that if it doesn't get traction after a couple of weeks, old Sean of 2 years ago would probably be like, I just let it go. I just keep moving on. Have an Elsa, move on. But I also look more specifically for things to jump out, like in production, and also that are they really looking for a senior level person? Because job descriptions are written so wonky that it's like, it's written more like entry level, but at the end of the day, it's mid-career. And then not being afraid in the screening process to just really sell your value, but also to flip the script and say, this is what I can bring. I mean, I've done it, and I've heard Dolly in my ear a lot of like, if they're talking full time, but then they mention there's someone on contract in the role, I flip the script and I then say, well, I could be a contract person, and here's the value that I bring. It's a sticky and risky thing, but that's how I assess it. And I feel like, you just got to keep going out there. But I don't just also, Brian says spray and pray, where he's like, you just send your resume out to like a ton of stuff and it's in the black hole. I'm very targeted and specific, but also if it doesn't work out or they don't want to talk to me, it's a timing thing and I move on. Because I have to look out for my current clients, but also continually have things in the pipeline, which that's the dance. And that's probably another topic for another show. But that's my answer.
What about visibility? Other than, being on Brant Kruger's tech chat, which is a great idea, and being part of Facebook communities and things like that. Are you writing? Are you posting, on LinkedIn in different groups with your knowledge, not just, yeah, whatever. That was really a great comment there,
So I went through a period where I kind of went quiet on social media just when everything with the Corona coaster was blowing up, and it was just enough to get through a day. I've stepped more now into the stream of, and this is a real life experience. So I volunteered my time to be a producer for this leadership summit that was at 400 plus locations. And I took a picture of what my setup looked like. Yeah. And LinkedIn let me know it got the most traction on one of my most recent posts. And it's just like, here's my office for the day. I love what I do. And then I had some other people ask like, oh, what, all these different things. But I also, one of the speakers there was James Clear, Atomic Habits, that everyone raves about the book. I need to get it. He's offering it at half price. But like I subscribe to his channel, and I've been now resharing more of like the things he posts because they're powerful about process and that kind of thing. And also, I think just engaging differently. LinkedIn is one where I probably need to, think of a process there. I had a colleague that said you could write an article. It's just a matter of also just fitting it into the day. But I also would say, getting back to that thing where I volunteered my time, I have now done that for 2 years, and I'm going to be asked back for a third year. And yes, I'm not getting paid, but I'm getting to hear great speakers and also get to see really cool technology, because just their whole control room and the production person me. But also I'm one that I'm learning and making comments too on. I'm a big Disney fan, if people don't know, and I love watching the mouse in motion, even though they're a little bit messed up right now. But I just love seeing, what's happening, and I will comment in these YouTube channels, and people have noticed that and said thank you. So that's where I'm at. And I've still been noodling around having some podcast or YouTube channel, but I'm just like, where am I going to find the time? But that nudge is still there.
I think that you go like behind the scenes at events that you're producing, and you find like faux pas, or there's two tables with tablecloths, and one's wrinkled, one's not. And you've got who wore it best. And you're just doing like funny behind the scenes things and sneaking them out. So you don't want to name your client. You don't want to expose anyone, but you could do fun little snippets like that and just just post them. I think it would be
Well,
great.
I've been given the nickname, kind of self-given, but clients have echoed it as the wizard behind the curtain. And if you all know the Wizard of Oz,
There
they're
you
like,
go.
you know, and I've had clients say, knowing you're like back at the tech table makes me more confident on the platform. And that means a lot to me that I coached them for success and got them all set up. So I am not one that shies away from being behind the scenes. I enjoy it. And also I've been contracted to have voice of God in my contract, where I'll just, you know, whether it's scripted or off the cuff. So I had one client like, we need to make sure we have that in your contract because we love when you do that. So great.
I'm just thinking like Shooty on Duty is more like a little vignettes of what happens behind the scenes. And
I get that. You're giving me
even like a shot of your control board, and it's like all the buttons, and you just kind of
I had people
what
with
everything is.
I had that one where I explained to some, it was on social media, like, what's up? I'm like, this is what this is for. And they're like, oh, glad it's you and not me. I'm scared even just with that one part. And I'm like, but then that shows I have the niche. So thank you.
They have the need and you have the expertise. That's that. But
Well, the one thing that I used to really just freak me out on site was when, you know, an exhibitor, for example, was breaking the rules, and then you had to go talk to them.
It happens all the time.
Or, or people just getting into arguments or stuff like that. That would be like a good opportunity. We're like, okay, these people are side by side, these two exhibitors, and I'm going to go over there, and they're having a feud because one's playing their music too loud, and I'm going to try and diffuse the situation. So here's what I'm going to do. And then, you know,
one of my memories early in my career was, you know, I want to find the room in heaven where all the pens that were stolen live. And I was at an event in Houston, of all places, and I'm really, you know, going around just cleaning things up, and I watched attendees steal completed evaluations. I'm like, what are you going to do with those? We need those. But I mean, like that whole adage of if it's not tied down, people will take it or trick or treat it. So anyways.
You know, where the pens are, they're in the same room with all the single socks.
Of course.
You know, that are gone. Yeah. So I think that would be so funny. Just like have a whole table of all the pens piled up. Or
I want to see that room when I go to heaven. Where are they?
I think they're going to have a special room for all of us event planners when we go to heaven.
Sean. Oh God. I hope that's true.
Totally.
Anybody deserves it.
Yes, we totally deserve it.
What do you do, Sean? What do you do when you got a client that goes, I want you to do more for less?
I go, okay, first explain that. Oh yeah. And then of course, puke in a can out the side. But I've also learned to counteract that. I can do that, but it's going to hit your wallet to the factor of X, and not like paying me more, but like we all had stories where a client has the, oh, by the way moment. And you're like, we never talked about green jello at lunch. And so you figure it out. But I've learned, and it's thanks to my colleagues in Spin, that you have to hit them in their wallet, and then they sometimes will take a second look at it. But yeah,
that's the only really.
Yeah. I've had also clients say to me, like, can we just do what we did last year? And to me, that's like death to a meeting planner. So I'm like, okay, take down last year's binder. Yes, I still rock a binder, and just rinse and repeat. And I can do that to a point, but if people that know me well, I'm like, let's sprinkle in one new thing every year so that the attendees go, what's going to happen in XYZ city? And not that, like Mickey Mouse is going to show up or fireworks go off. It's just, what's a new thing? Because attendees pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, again, early in my career, we had music going in the general session, then we had a reception in the ballroom, and I didn't think to have music in there. And I had two, and it was for firefighters coming to me like, where's the music? Because they remembered from earlier in the day that you created that experience. So,
well,
I honestly
kind of like Randy Rainbow thing going on behind the scenes at events that you're doing.
I might do some incognito next week at Connect Marketplace. Nothing against the show organizers, but we'll see what happens.
Yes, please share how that goes.
Yes.
I honestly think that independent planners are going to be the catalysts for events in 2024. Just with all the different experiences that you see, not only behind the curtains, but also you're tapped into what the stakeholders want. Mm-hmm. And being comfortable voicing that to the event organizers over and over and over again I think is going to be critical for their own success. So I do think that that's going to be an ask for a lot of independent planners going forward.
So when you write your book, Sean?
I actually have written a
the
book
next-
already.
Oh, no, the next book.
Yes.
What's it going to be? What's it going to be on?
A lot of people have told me that I could do stand-up comedy just to share like the war stories from what I've done, because some of the stuff you just can't make it up. But I think it really will be, you know, what I've really learned through the process and just that standing in your value and not being afraid of it. I forget the exact quote, like that. What's her name? Brene Brown talks about, you know, about being in the arena. And I think of like the two of you and Liz, like you're there cheerleading me on, but there's also people who want to throw stuff at you, you know, clients that don't care and, you know, will use email as a weapon. I mean, that's a whole nother topic too. But I mean, it's just, I think just what I've learned to just do it afraid, for lack of a word. Sometimes you may not have the words, and, you know, like I share with that in that thing where they said, okay, and the rate is $18. And I'm like, okay, I have to take a little breath, but I have to respond to this.
Yeah.
And I may be ending the conversation, but this is what I am and what I bring to the table. So.
I think that book's going to be called Bring It On.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I am ready.
Sometimes I feel like that. Just, okay, what next? Okay. Or fire hose therapy. Just, you know, sometimes I'm like, okay, just could you turn the water level down just a bit? But no, keep drinking. So
Perfect. Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. I do think you should do stand-up comedy. And I do agree with Bruno. Book number 2 should be on its way. Lessons are always learned, you know, and I love that you are super transparent. And it's I still sometimes feel like we're in the Corona coaster of some kind within the events industry, but you are going to continue to shine on, my friend. So thank you for being on the show. And what are we doing next, Bruno? What's next week like?
We are talking about family-friendly conferences.
Yes.
Oh.
Bring on Disney, but through your family.
It's more like duct tape, you know, or Velcro. Put the kid, you know, on the wall in the booth, and
yep,
you know,
let them have their tantrums. Liz is gonna be like in on this one as well. I mean, kids of all ages, but yeah, family friendly conferences. That's our next session. If anybody has any topics they would like to discuss or any pet peeves that they would like to air, would love to have you as a guest. You don't have to be on for the whole entire show. You can be on for like a little snippet of it. And we will see you next Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Take care.